everybody out there in UK crime bookland. I'm here with Deborah Masson to talk about a debut Machiavelli Prize winner. So if you could tell us about the plot, please. Hold your tongue.
Yeah, thanks very much for inviting me on, Alex. Delighted to be here.
No problem.
The plot of Hold Your Tongue follows my lead character, D.I. Eve Hunter, and she's making a return to work after enforced leave. And she comes back unsure of her own abilities, really, at odds with the rest of her team initially, and is thrown right back into a very serious case of a serial killer, sorry, who's stalking the streets of Aberdeen in the run up to Christmas. And it's really about her fight to find that person before too many other women are taken.
Yeah. When you were starting out to do the writing, why did you decide to start with a police procedural?
It wasn't actually a conscious decision. I had been scribbling away, doing flash fiction and short stories when my eldest was napping in the afternoons. And I had an opportunity to join a 6-week introduction to crime writing course through the Professional Writing Academy. And because it was crime fiction had always been something that I was an avid reader of, I decided, why don't I try and explore writing crime fiction, because it's what I love to read. So I did the 6 weeks course, and within that course, some of the modules required you to create a detective, a murder scene, a breakfast scene with a detective, and then finally to show an interview between the detective and the murderer. And the seed of an idea was born on that course. And before I knew it, it led me on to 2 further Faber online courses, which at the end of those, over about a 3-year period, I ended up with a first draft of what became Hold Your Tongue and found that I'd written a police procedure along the way.
Of all the classes and little bits, what was the one that you struggled with from the early courses?
Oh my goodness, now there's a question. Um, I think what was really important for me around being a full time mum, and by the time I was on the Faber courses, I had 2 very young children. So I think what I would have struggled with is deadlines and keeping turning up to the desk back then, because I was a full time mum. I had 2 children that didn't, well, my eldest didn't really love sleeping. So a lot of the days I was on my knees as a new mum. But what I learned was I wanted to turn up to the desk every day. I was choosing to write while she was napping. No one was paying me. There was no guarantees it would go anywhere. So if I was to say anything I would have struggled with, I was grateful for deadlines. And I was grateful for the structure of a course, and also the ongoing constructive criticism, really, from the tutor and fellow students. Otherwise, I think that would have been my main struggle.
What what would you say that you think is unique about Aberdeen as a place? Because there's lots of Scottish places that are used in crime fiction, and Aberdeen's not had many stories based in it.
Yeah, it's so true. Definitely, as a reader, I noticed that there was a lot of people basing Scottish crime fiction down in Edinburgh and Glasgow, and the only person that had, well, people actually that had championed Aberdeen was who I call the king of granite in your Stuart McBride. Can't hold a candle to him. He does it very, very well. I'm just glad to be writing in my own little corner of Aberdeen. Claire McCleary, and Jane Eddy as well, has recently started writing about Aberdeen as well. And I think what it lends itself to is crime fiction is quite dark and gritty. And Aberdeen, Granite City, it's a grey city. We haven't got the greatest of weather. It really lends itself, I think, to crime fiction as a character in its own way. And being born and bred in Aberdeen, it just seemed the right choice to be the place where I based my writing.
Talking of characters, what made you focus on the certain aspects of your main protagonist? And what you,
I think what I wanted to do with D.I. Hunter was I wanted, let's call her a kick-ass female lead. I wanted someone who was going to hit the page running from the off, but I wanted her to have her own amount of baggage. I know there's stereotypes with, you can have detectives that have drink problems, or they have a problem in their relationships, and it can be seen as stereotypical. But I'm a firm believer, to do the job that these people are doing, even in real life, it comes with its own problems. Um, and it's not cut and dry. And a lot of people do come to this job with baggage. And I think it can be a true reflection of the type of character that really is working in that job.
When you were looking at working on the supporting cast, um, there's a lot of people that have to work in the station. How difficult did you find that, to find so many unique people, given that this was your first novel?
I knew when I was making the team from the start, as I say, I wanted Eve to come after enforced leave. So I saw her coming back to quite a lot of conflict, but I wanted there to be a strong supporting character who would have her back. So I knew that DS Cooper was always going to be part of that team. I wanted a historical character who was going to cause problems with her and had worked with her previously, that become Ferguson. But I also wanted to throw a new person into the mix, who Eve would end up really having to prove herself to, but also that member would have to prove herself to Eve in return. And that's when Mearns was born. So it was really quite an organic process. I found a team of 4 without too much great thought about it, really, that lent itself, I hope, well to the story.
I don't know whether you feel comfortable mentioning this, but it was a really unique way that you brought the new person into the team. I'll leave that to you, whether you want to tell the readers why.
Yeah, one of the reasons for the enforced leave was how Eve had dealt with a previous case and the repercussions from that. So her initial partner, shall we say, Sanders, had actually been injured on the job and left paralysed from the neck down. And I guess I wanted to show disability, I hope, in a sensitive way, and give a voice to someone that's not always represented in fiction. And I hope I did it properly. But yeah, I did want there to be something really dark in Eve's past, and also for Mearns coming as Sanders' replacement, to have that pressure of following Sanders, who didn't leave through choice and was a very well regarded officer. I thought it lent itself well to the story.
When you were working on the background for the villain, I know that that's a different skill. How do you think that went versus the good side of the characters?
I think when I first started writing, I saw it as an almost, at first, because I was a full-time mum and it was a shock to the system after working full-time, I saw it as an escapism. And then as I worked through the draft of Hold Your Tongue, there was a lot of things going on in my life. I was unhappy in my personal life. I went through a relationship breakdown. My mum was diagnosed terminal with cancer. And I really think that writing the book that I did, the crime fiction, and it was dark and gritty, I think it was my way of dealing with things that were really quite hard in my life at the time. And I think going into the head of that baddie, so to speak, it was just a way of just getting out of my own head and my own world and exploring something else, but from the comfort of my sofa. And I really enjoyed exploring that person, because I love characters like that, in fiction and films. And it was great to get an opportunity to write that baddie. I enjoyed it.
You, because you won the McIlvenny debut prize, but did you ever go up to Bloody Scotland before? Because of course I know this year's been cancelled because of COVID, but I've been going to Harrogate for quite a few years, and I was sat in the audience. I wondered if you'd done the same at Bloody Scotland.
Yeah, that was one of the things that made being awarded that really, really special, because I'd always gone to Bloody Scotland over the years as a reader. Absolutely loved attending talks for people that, I devoured their books and that. And I remember sitting there very early when I was just starting out scribbling, and I thought, imagine if one day someone said I was good enough, and I had I had a book out there, and maybe my name was just mentioned somewhere on a poster or something at this festival. Imagine how wonderful that would be. Um, so yeah, to be awarded that was just, it exceeded all my dreams. It was amazing. And I think it was glaringly apparent from my acceptance speech. I was not expecting to win. Um, I'd arranged to go away on a 1.5 hour drive straight after the ceremony, and I hadn't charged my mobile phone. I was that convinced it would not be me. So it really was a really special moment, to be awarded it and to have that recognition from my peers. It just was wonderful.
It's definitely a way that I like to keep abreast with Scottish fiction, the McIlvenny. Who would you say has been your biggest influences from being in the audience there?
Oh wow. Like I say, I mean, Stuart McBride writing on the same patch. I've loved seeing him in the past, but really, I think the writer that made me pick up police procedural, really, the first person whose series I really devoured was way back, and I was in my 20s, and that would have been Mark Billingham. And I
Yeah.
picked up Sleepyhead, and I was just wow, and I devoured every DIT Tom Thorne book that was available at that time. So when he was on the bill at Bloody Scotland, I remember being super excited. And when I got a ticket to see him, yeah, I was over the moon. So as far as, very early reading and getting to see that person um, in person, it was fantastic.
Yeah, I must admit, I love Sleepyhead too. I had
Oh,
him, I had him on earlier in the year, and the way that you use that locked-in character in
yeah,
that as well.
fantastic.
Yeah,
Very clever that we got to see from their point of view as well. We had the thoughts going on in their head. I thought it was a very, very clever way of telling the story. It's good.
when you're looking at different ways to tell the story from the protagonist, have you ever thought about doing the secret person, like because I think it was Steve Kavanagh did a part of the book from she and his new one.
Okay. No, I haven't. I haven't really gave it much thought, but it's definitely something to explore in the future, and I might. You've maybe see sowed a seed there. But yeah, I'm finding my way at the moment. Obviously, Hold Your Tongue was my debut. My second book is upcoming, and exploring DIE hunting that again. And I think it's just enjoying the team and the cases as I go at the moment. But there's so
Yeah,
much I would like to experiment with, so to speak.
it must be nice to be able to experiment with that. And I think you were saying earlier before we came out of that, the chance of doing that with a standalone as well might be
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. About 2-3 weeks ago, I signed a further contract with Transworld UK for a third book in the DIE Hunter series, which again is a dream come true. But along the way with that, I also pitched a standalone thriller, also based in Aberdeen, and I'm so grateful that they've also picked that up. So I have that to look forward to, which is outside the box from what I've been doing and is an opportunity to explore what I can write. So I'm really excited about that opportunity.
Um, so to um, if you were to write in another area of crime fiction that wasn't a police procedural, what would it be?
Ooh. I think the standalone thriller I'm looking forward to. I don't want to give too much away because it's in the very early kind of just an idea in the head at the moment, really. But I really want to tell that from the viewpoint of quite an unbalanced character, to say the least. Someone who is seen as, I guess, a very respectable member of society, but is actually an anomaly in the system, but
Yeah,
people just don't know it. And I just wanted to have fun, like you were asking earlier on about the baddie and Hold Your Tongue. The thought of writing an entire book from that kind of point of view really excites me. Just something totally different. Away from procedure and formality. Yeah, I think it'll be a lot of fun to write.
I, I love a good I love a good villain. You were saying in an earlier interview that you were a big fan of horror and other genres, and like I think it was fairies and Botany Garden somewhere in
Yeah, when I was a kid, I started
yeah.
off writing about fairies at the bottom of the garden. That didn't last for long, as you can see. It went pretty dark early on. But yeah, loved reading Stephen King, loved, reading all that kind of genres and stuff. Silence of the Lambs, watching all the films, the gritty, horrors and dramas. Yeah, I've always loved that. I think it's like I said, it's getting inside the head of people that you may never meet in life, and you probably hope you never will meet. Um, but doing it from the safety of your sofa, and yeah, I think that's what crime fiction is for a lot of people. It's escapism, but it's exploring issues, that are current in society, really, but doing it through the safety of fiction.
And what do you read? What do you read to your kids that might inspire them? Do you think?
I think that's one of the greatest things to take away from what I've achieved so far. I have a 6-year-old, and a soon to be 11-year-old, and I'm a single mum. And I think being able to just to say to them, you know, mummy always dreamed of writing, and maybe getting somewhere with it. And, even if I achieve nothing further than where I've got to, Alex, it is just so great to tell them that it's possible, that the dream can come true. And if you work hard enough and you reach for the stars, so to speak, it can be done. And it's a fantastic thing to give to my kids. And I'm very proud that I'm able to do that for them.
In writing the first one, what would you say is your hardest bit of research? Because you were talking about to me earlier about how it might be difficult to get it right in the case of Sanders and disability.
Yeah, I think in the first book, I was very aware of that. Um, and I wanted to read first person accounts of living with that type of disability, someone who wasn't born with that disability, and how it could basically change their whole world. And I read a lot of first person accounts from people that we've never heard of, that just had posted like their journey online, really. But I really tapped into Christopher Reeves as well, of Superman fame, and the tragedy that hit him, and a lot of his campaigning and interviews really give me a lot of inspiration for writing the character of Sanders.
Um, in in writing that, what would you say is your, your best piece of advice for writing a team of people?
A team of people,
Yeah,
um, as in like sort of developing a team or creating a police team, or
yeah,
yeah. Um, I think you've got to make sure that there's a clear difference in your characters, and that when those characters come together on the screen, there's a real kind of camaraderie between them that people want to read, and a little bit of humor thrown in, that kind of brings a bit of light to the dark. Um, and yeah, that bring their own conflict to the page and support the main character. Yeah, I think it's about building a team that works as a whole.
I find humour is really important for me when reading. What is it about humour that you think is key in writing, in particularly a crime novel?
I think in a crime novel, you have to be careful how you use it so that it works in the scenes that you're writing. But I think you need to remember these are real people who are doing a pretty grave job, really, and it's a well known fact that, in the police force and people doing postmortems and all these kind of things, you need to have that side to it. To others outside the job, it may seem insensitive, but a lot of the times humor is what get these people through the day job, you know. So I do use humor for McLean, my pathologist. I try to do that sensitively, but at the same time, there's other places where it may jar a little bit with the reader, but that's the truth of his character and how a lot of people are on the job. Um, and I think it's important not to have it all doom and gloom for the reader as well. You want to have a little smile here and there to bring the story a little bit of light against the dark, I think.
Yeah, I will always find that as important. Particularly given that it starts off dark and needing such a therapy and stuff. Well, did you do any research around how the police cope with trauma and things like that?
Sorry, how the police.
Cope with trauma through therapy.
I think the only way I've really touched upon that is with my main character, Eve Hunter, having to see a psychologist after coming back. I can't say that Eve's happy about seeing that person. It's more, let's say, forced upon her. But yeah, I think it shows the battles she has with allowing herself to open up too much. I think, you know, a lot of these people that do work in these jobs perhaps feel they have to remain strong, you know, stiff upper lip and all that. Whereas sometimes it's a big burden, you know, to be holding inside all the time. So I did try to show a little bit of vulnerability there, or you know, that there is help out there. It's just whether that character wants to take that on board.
When you were doing the course earlier, you said about how your detective would be eating lunches. That's an important as a family dynamic section. How did you deal with that in the series?
Sorry, I didn't get that question.
The family dynamic part of the section. How did you deal with that in the series?
The family dynamic, as in my own family dynamic, or
when you were writing the series, you said about how you had to focus on the early part of the course about doing a meal with a detective, and I just thought, how did you cope with the family dynamic side of the character?
oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, we were asked to do a breakfast scene with the main character, but believe it or not, way back as early as that, Eve Hunter was actually a male called D.I. Danny Portman. So started off life as a male detective. Um, and I still had the idea of the injured leg, which I ran with Eve Hunter when it eventually became Hold Your Tongue. So my breakfast scene was in no way a family dynamic. It was Danny Portman waking up alone in a bed in absolute throes of agony with his leg, and his breakfast happened to be lukewarm, well, absolutely stone cold coffee, if the truth be known, from the night before, and a bucket load of painkillers. So that was my breakfast scene. Doom and gloom and dark.
Nothing wrong with that. I don't think you need a bit of doom and gloom sometimes.
Yeah.
When when you were thinking about that, what made you change from a male to a female? Because I've noticed that you were commenting on how you believe that female crime writers have been doing really well at the moment on Twitter.
I think what it was, my draft had made it all the way through to 4 agents in London when I got up the nerve to actually send it out and, you know, put my baby out there and see if anyone was going to pick it up. But yeah, I think once it was with the agent and he'd offered the wonderful Ollie Munson at AM Heath, I might say, but once he'd offered representation, there was something just not quite sitting right with me, with it being a male character. And I'd really gone down the stereotypical thing at that time with drink and everything else, and I just had this feeling that what I wanted to be doing was writing a really strong female lead. So I got in touch with Ollie and ran that past him, thinking it was far too late, and was very, very happy when he agreed and thought it would it would run a lot better with a female lead. So I had a lot of fun changing all the he's to she's, and finding hobbies for Eve instead of Danny. But I think it was well worth the work. I think it was a better book for it, and I'm really happy with Eve as a character.
Yeah, because I noticed today that you were looking at Chris McDonald's book, because his new one coming out soon.
Oh, fantastic. Honestly, if anyone's looking for a book to read, Whispers in the Dark, Chris MacDonald, D.I. Erica Piper, fantastic book. First in the series as well. A Wash of Black. Recommend. It's good.
Yeah, I read it too, and I must admit, I did enjoy it.
Yeah, really good lead character he's created there, which is great.
When you've been doing these interviews and things, because I know you've not really done that many. What's been the scariest question you've been asked so far?
Oh, that's a good one. I think every question is scary. I actually posted something up to Twitter today. I was talking with a local company called Elevator UK last Friday, and I found it not quite. I found it very nerve wracking on the run up, because it was a live stream interview, a bit like this, but it was out over Instagram, Facebook, various platforms. But they put on this big 3-minute countdown before I went on, and that's all I could see. So it was this like X Factor music and timer going down 3 minutes, and my heart was about beating out my chest. And when I do this type of things, because I'm so new to it, live radio, podcast, this kind of thing, yeah, I hold my hand up. It's nerve wracking coming from behind the screen to do these things, but it's also been great, because I've had such great feedback from readers and interviewers that you start thinking, well, I feel I'm wittering, but maybe it's coming across okay. And actually, I posted a thing to Twitter today, because the CEO of Elevator UK had congratulated me, and I had to laugh because it was on being a great conversationalist. And I thought, if you had seen the state I was in before and after that interview, you would have probably been killing yourself laughing. So I must have a good game face, I think.
A good game face is
Good game face.
crucial. I've realised as well. What would you say? Because you've mentioned in your bio online that you've had several smaller jobs before. One of them being a postie. What would you say that you might end up drawing on as an influence for writing later?
Wow, that's a good one. Yeah, my previous job list was like a who's who. It has to be said. I could not settle in anything that I felt was right for me. I felt really, really trapped in office work, and thought, oh, maybe I have to write outdoors, and maybe I have to do this. So I tried being a postie, and it was fantastic. It's the fittest I've ever been and the slimmest I've ever been. But I think what I was really hankering after and didn't realize until I got into writing was I was more of a creative person.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad that I got the opportunity through being a mum to have that time to try something else. But yeah, I saw a few things as a postie that I could probably bring to a fair few characters, including some of the people I worked with at 4:30 in the morning. So yeah, there's definitely something to be tapped into there.
Yeah, because as soon as I saw it, I thought Posty finds a body somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, you meet a lot of characters on a regular round for sure, and get to know people's lives more so than they probably realise. So yeah, there's a few stories there and experiences I could definitely draw upon.
When you've been talking to other writers like festivals and things, what's the best piece of advice they've given you?
I think the best piece of advice I've been given, and there's quite a few writers have said it to me, is not to concentrate on anyone else's writing journey but your own. Yeah, there lies madness if you compare yourself to others. I think you have to enjoy the ride for what it is for yourself, and make the most of every minute. and appreciate that there's people out there that want to read your stuff, which is just the best feeling.
Speaking of best feelings, we have got Sam helping us out tonight, and one of her favourite questions to ask people is, what is the author's most memorable moment so far as an author?
Wow. Can I have two?
Yeah, go for it too.
I think the first one was being in a balcony on holiday with my children and taking a call. Um, Basically, after Ollie had asked for the full manuscript and taken a call to hear that he wanted to offer representation. That was fantastic. The call he gave me before that, just asking for the full MS, had found me in Tesco's. So I ended up dancing by the watermelons in the fruit and veg section. So that was two really memorable moments. But since then, has to be bloody Scotland. Has to be.
Yeah.
Just amazing.
With that being online, I was able to see more of it and all of it this year. What would you say has been your favourite part of that online, and how much of it did you actually see?
Well, I ended up away for the weekend that weekend, as I say, straight after the ceremony. I was off on a 1.5 hour car journey, but was delighted when it got posted up on YouTube afterwards, and was able to watch a lot of what I'd missed. But one of the things I really enjoyed and thought was very entertaining was the never ending story one that they did. I thought it was very clever.
That was a long 4 hours, and
Yes.
Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so many authors that I admire. It's hard to take it down to just a few. I love listening to how other people write, what their inspiration is. I think it's great.
We've got several audience questions along the side.
I know I'm seeing them down the side and they're coming up quite quick. So because I'm concentrating on you, I haven't been reading any of them. I have to say, I'm new to all this.
It's all right. We'll get my assistant Pete to scroll down and read a few of them out for you.
Oh, thanks, Pete.
First one, does Deborah write any other genres?
We've got one asking, do you write any other genres?
No, not as of yet. Hold Your Tongue was the very first novel that I ever wrote. Currently writing book 3 of that, and as I say, going to be exploring a standalone thriller soon. And that's it so far. Yeah.
What are the things that stuck with you from your writing from your debut?
What are the things that stuck with you from your writing courses that helped you write your debut?
I think one of the main things that I learnt was the use of senses. I always remember having part of the course where we were talking about smell, and it was something that I had never thought of using in my writing, bizarrely. And I really found once I started to really think about, sight, sound, smell, and everything, I hope that my writing became a lot more detailed and allowed the reader to be in the scene with me, alongside me. I think that was one of the most important things I took away from the course was the use of senses in your writing.
Yeah, but I find that the way that authors describe smell is useful sometimes.
Yeah.
We've got a question asking how you structure your time with writing, especially with having children.
Short of sellotaping both of my children to the wall at times, especially in lockdown, I find myself writing a lot during school hours, and I'm very lucky that I get the opportunity to do that. I take my hat off to people that work full time and have children and still manage to carve out time to write. You're amazing.
Going back to that as a question, how is it working with editors? With it being your first few books, it must be a new challenge having people working directly with you and advising you on it.
Yeah, it's great. I'm very, very lucky to work with Tash Barsby at Transworld UK. She's very, very supportive, and certainly in the 2 books so far in the series that she's worked on with me. Um, yeah, it's been a very mutual thing of finding ways to improve stuff, and to delve deeper into characterization or scenes and stuff. She's a joy to work with. I've never had something suggested to me that I didn't see improving the book or that I had to fight back against. We're quite similar minded in where we want the story to go. I'm grateful for that.
It's a very unique cover for Hold Your Tongue. How much influence did you have on it? And
Didn't have any influence on the cover at all. Probably a good job, because I don't think I would have done anything near as good as that. They did a fantastic job. I remember squealing when the cover came through. I was delighted with it. So yeah, that's definitely best left to the professionals.
because your new one's quite similar as well. It's got a noose on it.
Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
Yes. Safety pins and nooses. I think that kind of about sums it up, really.
We've got asking in the audience if there's a book that's got a special connection with you that you've read a number of times.
I think there's a lot of crime fiction books that I've read more than once. I think too many to pin one down, but it's either because I completely love that character and that writer, or it's because I've got something to learn from that particular book as a writer. And there was books I read as a child over and over again that I've actually just started re-exploring. Actually, I ordered 3 or 4 books just the other week that stand out in my head from going to the mobile library as a child, and I wanted to reread them and see if I can capture that same magic. So, but yeah, far too many to mention. I revisit a lot of books.
What would you say that you are your children's favourites that you read to them?
My son, who has just turned 6, is all about the dinosaurs. Anything dinosaurs. He doesn't get anywhere near anything mummy writes yet, and won't for a lot of years. And my daughter is a huge David Williams and Jacqueline Wilson fan at the moment, so she goes between them. I have recently introduced her to Enid Blyton as well, and yeah, she's devouring that, which I'm so happy for because I loved those books as a kid.
Yeah, I must admit, I'm a big fan of the Secret Seven.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, when you used to imagine that you were part of them, it was great.
When you're looking at writing, would you ever consider writing for kids? Because the other day we had a young adult panel, and it had Eddie Griffiths and some big names on it. Tell us about a justice series.
Yeah, I think writing for kids is a really difficult job. I did sign up for a course a long, long time ago that was writing for children, because I wanted to try it. But I think I was definitely supposed to go down the path that I did, because every time I tried to write for kids, it ended up someone got killed and it went far too dark for kids to be reading. So I thought, no, this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. Not that there isn't a place for darkness in kids fiction as well, just not quite as dark as I was going. So.
Yeah. We've got another question from the audience. How did it feel to debut during this strange year?
I have to say I was lucky in that my debut came out on Boxing Day. So it was released in ebook in the November and then released in paperback on Boxing Day. So I was very lucky to get that time ahead of lockdown, where it did hit the shelves, and it did get a little bit of promotion. I was able to go to my first panel at Granite Muir, which was great because that was in my hometown. And then sadly, other ones that had been lined up for were cancelled, and understandably so. But no, my heart goes out to the debuts that came after the lockdown. It's a tough gig to be releasing this year, but there's a lot of support, in the writing community for these people trying to boost their books and making sure that they're visible.
you must get a lot of early copies and debuts and people asking you to read it. What's the recommendation for next year that you've read that you'd recommend to people?
Yeah, that's one of the best parts since kind of coming out as an author. I get to read things before other people, but it's also the frustration of having deadlines and not being able to say yes to everything, even though you'd love to. But yeah, one of the books that I'm really excited that's coming out next year, as you asked, is The Jigsaw Man, Nadine Matheson. Yeah, I have that, and I have started it just today actually. And yeah, there's a lot of hype surrounding it, and I think it's probably just from the very early pages I've read going to be well deserved.
Well, you can always tell a lot from the early pages or something.
Definitely.
How was it writing the early pages of yours, and how many drafts did you have to go through?
With Hold Your Tongue, the prologue was actually the first. I know some people write out a sequence and everything, but it was actually the first part that I wrote on the Faber course. And it was amazing to get the feedback that I did from fellow students and that prologue very much stayed as it was when Hold Your Tongue hit the shelves 3-4 years later. And I think it's probably my favourite chapter in that book because it was integral to the story, and it's how it all started, basically. So yeah, I really enjoyed opening up the story with that prologue. I think it needed to be there. I know there's lots of discussion around whether prologues need to be there, but yeah, I felt it was right for the
book. I definitely think that prologues do have the place and help out with the book. Yeah, enjoyed the prologue.
Yeah, thank you.
We've got as a new writer, what did you find the hardest?
Certainly the first one was written at leisure and for enjoyment as I learned through courses. The second one, Out for Blood, which sees us back with the team, that was written to deadline. My first experience of that. By that time, my mum was gravely ill, so it was a real test in time, and I think that was a real challenge. Turning up to the desk, no matter what was going on, and trying to hit that deadline. But I'm also very grateful that I had that deadline because it kept me sane, and it was yet again some escapism. And I think I'm working on book 3 at the moment, and it's keeping that voice quiet in your head. Is this going to be good enough? You know, have I got another book in me because I'm new to all this? You know, you've just got to put all that to bed and write and keep writing, turn up to the desk.
And there was a second part of that question because you just reminded that, Pete.
Okay.
What surprised you the most about writing the book?
What surprised you the most about writing the book?
Wow. I think what surprised me most about writing a book is the fact that I managed to do it. You know, when I started out, it was, as I say, it was this flash fiction, short stories, it was courses. And I remember hitting a time where I thought, hey, this might actually go to a first draft. I might actually be able to write a book. And the most surprising thing was that as much as it was going on in my life at the time, and if it wasn't for my tutor, Tom Bromley, pushing me, that yeah, I came out of it with a first draft that I was pretty proud of, and yeah, that an agent wanted to snap up, and yeah, huge surprise, best surprise.
Thinking going back to flash fiction, what would you say you learned from doing that?
I think it definitely teaches you to keep your writing tight. So you have to tell a story within very few words. I think in crime fiction, it helps when you're writing those scenes where you're trying to pace it so that the reader hopefully is wanting to turn the pages and start turning them with a little bit of speed. and I think it really helps in the editing process as well to cut away a lot of the waffle, because you've written to that tight kind of word count in the past. That's what I would definitely take away from it.
When you talk about pacing a book, what methods did you use to ensure that you kept the pace?
I read a lot of how to write books. A lot of these plot points and 3 act structures, and took a lot of input from the courses and that. Read a great book, and her name, oh, it's terrible. Her name escapes me. Alexandra. Oh my God, that's terrible. But she's a writer herself, and she wrote a book about stealing Hollywood. And it was, you probably know the book. Our surname's gone out of my head. That's terrible. But yeah, it was about comparing films and how the pacing and plot points can lend themselves to novel writing, and I found that an absolute godsend on how to keep that pace going.
So many people have recommended that book. I've not read it yet, but I will.
Yeah, fantastic. I actually did a Bloody Scotland masterclass with her. They do a writing masterclass on the Thursday before the festival kicks off, and she was teaching strategies from that book, and I was at that workshop, and it was fantastic. Really, really good.
Have we got any more of these questions?
If you could write a book with anyone, who would it be?
We've got, if you could write a book with anyone, who would it be?
Wowzer. See, I'm gonna give names to this and then be like, oh, I should have mentioned this one and that one. There's so many people, but I think because I absolutely loved him as a kid, Stephen King. I mean, that would be the dream. That would be the dream. And someone has just posted down in the corner there, Sokolov. So thank you very much, Samantha. It's Sokolov. That was Alexandra's surname.
Do you find it easy to write for male or female characters?
Do you find it easy to write for male or female characters?
Why I chose to start Eve Hunter off as a male, I have no idea. But I noticed in my flash fiction, I actually write as a male quite a lot. In the early days of writing, I don't know why. It just seemed to be my go-to. But no, I really enjoy writing Eve Hunter. But I also enjoy exploring Ferguson and Cooper and getting the opportunity to write males as well. I have fun with it all.
And I don't know, I think later on in the series, have you thought about switching the main protagonist to one of the others to give them an angle?
I don't know about switching, because I think in police procedurals you really do kind of follow that main character, but certainly in book 2 I've tried to show a bit more of Cooper's home life, to start exploring the team a little bit more, and in book 3 I'm trying to give more of a spotlight on Ferguson. So I'm conscious of bringing some of the kind of background members to the forefront as I write each book.
Yeah.
Was book 2 easier to write than your debut?
We got, was book 2 easier to write than your debut?
Sorry, what was that one?
Was book 2 easier to write than the debut?
No. Easier to write in that the team was already established, and so was the world that I'd created. Not easier to write as in, my goodness, I took 3 years for the first one, and is there another book in there? Especially to deadline. But yeah, I got there, and I'm telling myself I'll do the same with book 3, so onwards.
There's a lot of compliments on you. There's people asking when the next book is due out.
We've got a lot of compliments, and people are already asking when is the next book due out.
Oh, well, thank you very much to everyone listening and watching. I really appreciate it. Out for Blood is out in ebook next Thursday, actually, which I'm really excited about. And it's out in paperback on the 10th of December. And it sees us back with D.I. Eve Hunter and the team. This time exploring an almost hidden Aberdeen. And it's exploring human trafficking and prostitution. And it was a subject that I'd watched a documentary on, and started researching locally. Surprised to find so many cases locally, and on speaking to an officer who works in human trafficking in the northeast of Scotland. And I was really keen, similar to Sanders in the first book, to give a voice to someone that doesn't necessarily have a voice. And again, to tell that story as sensitively as I could. So I hope that I've done that, and I'm excited to have even the team back out there.
Yeah. And it will be out on audio on the same day as it is out in others as well, because it's part of
Yes.
that one.
Yes. Thank you, Alex. Yes,
No
it will
problem.
be.
It could live anywhere for you, or you wrote the book set, where would you go?
We've got if you could live anywhere for a year, and if you could write a book set there, where would you go? So,
Oh,
question
wow.
of the
Well,
first
you
one.
know, I'm very, very proud of my Scottish roots. I don't think there is anywhere more beautiful than the Highlands of Scotland. I've spent a lot of time up there, and caravans and tents and all sorts. And there are a few retreats that I keep my little eagle eye on that are just in the back of nowhere by a loch that, you know, would just be the dream to disappear and to write. But yeah, 2 children and very little childcare does not bring that to a reality. But yeah, you can dream. That's what I would love to do.
I've interviewed a number of people with their own writing sheds. Where do you write?
I'm lucky in that I'm actually back in what was my childhood home with my children. So it's bizarre, but the little nook up at the top of my stairs, there's a little Velux window where my mother used to have the old style tumble dryer with the pipe out the window. I don't know if you remember those.
Yeah,
So I have taken that space and put a very small writing desk in it and a chair on wheels, and that is my space that the children supposedly are banned from using, but are all over at all times. So, but I'm glad I have in it.
yeah. Was it hard to keep them away from it during lockdown because they were there too?
Very, very difficult. And I've always worked off my mat book, but on the back of bloody Scotland, and the money that I got for that, I thought, right, we're going to do something writing related. So I went and treated myself to a monitor and a keyboard and a hard drive. And I felt very right early doing that. I was delighted. But it's been very difficult to keep my daughter off of it and gaming, because this monitor is just a dream come true for her. So, um, yeah, she wants to give up a rota, you know, who gets it when. I'm still fighting against that idea.
Given that you've got kids of different ages, I know that other writers I've spoken to have said they write children as characters. Do you think your writing will change as they get older?
Um, I know that I've been asked a few times by them, when do we get to read your book, mummy? And I've told them, no time soon. But I love what I write. I can't see it changing as they grow. I certainly haven't written to accommodate their ages or anything, so I think I'll just continue doing what I'm doing and hope that they like it when they're old enough.
What do you think would be a suitable age to let them read it then?
Oh, at least 42. No, just I am sure my daughter loves reading, so I'm sure she'll be like myself and reading things above her age way before she should be. So yeah, I don't think I'll keep them off of it for too
Yeah.
long.
So, what was the thing that you read way before you should have been then?
Um, it's not gonna sound like much, but I remember going back to mobile libraries. I remember the mobile library pulling up on a Thursday night and the excitement of going down and standing at the bottom of them steps. And I used to feel like you were stepping up into another world, you know. And I always remember my mum saying to me, when you pick up a book off the shelf, you know, you can go anywhere you like. You know, you can be anywhere you want to be, anyone you want to be. And that was a huge thing that stuck with me. Um, and I always remember wanting to test my reading and explore it. And one of the books that I picked up was Children of the Dust. I forget the author, I'm terrible. But it was basically a nuclear fallout book, and I was way too young to be reading it, and it really, really stuck with me. But I loved it, absolutely loved it, and it's one of the ones that I ordered just the other week that I want to reread as an adult, and that really stuck out in my head.
I think that we've probably covered a lot of things, and I'll let you rest and end by saying thank you very much for tonight.
I am so delighted to have been asked along, so thank you so much. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you.
And thank you for such thorough, quick answers too.
I've surprised myself. You were asking what surprises me earlier on, eh? I'm away to have a glass of wine now, Alex.
Yeah. Go for it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
No